Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, welcome to the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week comes from Aftershock Comics, and it's Moth and Whisper #1. I really like this book. It kind of blew me away. It came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting much out of it. Kind of was just right underneath my radar. I knew it was coming out. Didn't really know too much about it. I loved it. Written by Ted Anderson with artwork by Gene Hickman and lettered by Marshall Dillon. The lettering, the coloring, the art, the line work, and the script, the writing, the dialogue, everything about this book to me is pitch perfect. Loved it so much. It's a simple premise, basically. There's a character in this world called the Moth and one called the Whisper. The Moth is a master of disguise and the Whisper is a master of stealth. And what happens when these two giant criminal forces go missing, and then their child is left to fend for himself and try to figure out what happened to him. It's a mystery. It's really intriguing. One of my favorite things about this book is the artwork. Jen Hickman's artwork is great. She uses this like color palette that really represents the characters and kind of like throws it together. It's just such a nice, elegant package. I loved this book so much. Came out of nowhere, blew me away. There were a lot of great books out this week. There's a lot of comic books out this week. We're about to cover 34 comics here. But Moth and Whisper #1 stood out above the rest. Aftershock's been doing some really good stuff lately. They got some good titles. Moth and Whisper is one of those ones. I have a feeling it's going to be a little under-ordered, but you might want to go in and check it. If your comic shop does not have it, definitely ask them to reorder it. This book was something special. I really thought it was neat, nice and unique. Action-oriented, a great mystery, great characters, intriguing concepts, and experimental and groundbreaking artwork. I really liked this book. Thought it was fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, we got a new issue of the Fantastic Four out this week. We're celebrating now 2 issues back in the Fantastic Four, and I loved this issue so much. The first issue was pretty good. Decent setup, right? Just kind of let us know what the world was like without the Fantastic Four. Really focused in on Ben, his relationship with Alicia, and of course Johnny as well. This one lets us know what Reed, Sue, and the rest of the Future Foundation have been up to, what's been going on, and what put them in such a need to send that signal to Earth, to Ben and Johnny, to let them know that everything was okay, that they were there, but something obviously had to cause that to happen, right? You find out everything in here. You do get the first appearance of the Griever. I believe maybe the first appearance. I'm pretty sure it's in this issue, aside from like a cover or two, the first official appearance. This book was great. It was fantastic. I loved the story. It made sense. It was logical. The dialogue is great. The characterization is great. Dan Slott understands these characters. I knew he understood Ben and Johnny, and he definitely gets Reed and Sue and the rest of the Future Foundation. He's done work with these characters before on his previous work over on Spider-Man especially. Really good stuff. I'm loving it. Of course, I would say that mostly just because I'm excited that my favorite comic book is back. I love the Fantastic Four so much. No secret there. But seriously, I love the second issue. Sarah Pichelli's artwork, I'm not always the biggest fan. At times it seems a little sketchy, a little loose, but aside from that, it does have a nice composition. The figures work nice. The emotions are expressed perfectly. I really do like this book. I think it's fantastic. I love it, and it's everything I've been waiting for, and it's just heating up right now, and it's just about to start, and I love the ending of this issue. So fantastic, so fantastic. Even amazing. Speaking of amazing, Amazing Spider-Man #5 is here, and I want to spotlight something about this. First of all, I love this book. I think it's amazing. Nick Spencer, Ryan Ottley, doing a great job. I love what Mr. Dan Slott was doing on this title before, but Nick Spencer in 5 issues has really just nailed it. Absolutely nailed the character of Peter Parker, his mission, his sense of responsibility, who Spider-Man is as well, and the fun of being Spider-Man. The silliness in the world, the tongue-in-cheek aspect that has to be approached when you write a script for Spider-Man. All that's there, of course, with the relationship with Mary Jane kind of coming back into the fold, pleasing a lot of old-time readers, pleasing a lot of new school readers. Amazing Spider-Man's been really good. One thing I will point out, though, is that Marvel has now changed some of their paper stock. So in order to cut costs and keep comic books kind of low right now, around $3.99, you know what I mean? It's crazy to think that we're paying for like 22-page pamphlets for like $4 or $5, right? But in order to keep those costs down, they're going to have to change the paper stock. DC's been doing that. They got a thicker, more late 90s newsstandy type paper quality that I really, really do enjoy. It feels old school. The colors are luscious. They come through it really well. They still use the glossy paper here at Marvel, and the colors pop off of it well, but they are very, very thin. They kind of like, I think they changed the thinness of their covers first. Now I think they're changing the thinness of some of their interior pages. They seem like they're going to be damaged a little bit easier, so be on the lookout for that this week on some of those Marvel titles, at least something I picked up on. If you picked up on it, let me know in the comments down below. Infinity Wars #3 is here. I think Gary Duggan did a great job of setting this whole thing up with his Guardians of the Galaxy work, Infinity Countdown. It was interesting, it was neat, but now maybe that we're so far removed from the movie Infinity War first hitting, and just the idea of what's going on in the story, they keep trying to fool us with fake death after fake death, and we're not fooled. We're comic book fans. We've been through quite a few of these Infinity type events. This one kind of lost its luster a little bit. Still, you got Mike Deodato Jr. doing some of the best work of his career. His layouts are perfect. I love it. I love the composition of each page. It adds a nice richness and texture to the story, but the story just doesn't quite grab me in here. And the whole Infinity Warps thing, that all happens here, and it kind of makes an almost kind of sense, but it also kind of feels a little too silly for me. I'm not going to explain too much about what Infinity Warps is. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it kind of references something that Thanos did in the original Infinity Gauntlet, but in a different way, and it's kind of neat and almost clever, but almost. Journey into Mystery, the birth of Krakoa, is here this week. So I didn't even know this thing was coming out, but apparently it's a one-shot. Journey into Mystery used to be a book. It was like an anthology series with strange, weird, horrific type tales sometimes. And it's eventually where Thor debuted by Jack Kirby and of course Stan Lee, and where Thor continued, and then eventually it just became a Thor book, right? And they've tried to bring back Journey into Mystery every so often, sometimes tied into the Asgardians, sometimes tied into the original concept of the anthology series. This is kind of like not an anthology, but it's just a one-shot. It's about the birth of Krakoa, the island that walks. You remember that from Giant Size X-Men and Wolverine the X-Men by Jason Aaron. Utilized this island character in such just an amazing manner, in my opinion. But this was a really, really fun book. Dennis Hopeless was the writer. The Jibril Morissette Fawn is the artist. I like the art. It's really cool. I think it's very simple. It's got nice like strength to each line that's behind it, and I think it really works well for the story. But Rachel Rosenberg, her coloring is just to die for. It is absolutely gorgeous. Look at the coloring on that page. Lots of nice shades of yellows and oranges and purples to like throw out, immense the dark stuff, greens, lots of colors. They pop so well. The coloring in this book is some of the best coloring in a comic book this week, outside of Moth and Whisper, because I love that's a simpler form of coloring, but it's very artistic and very expressive, and so is Journey into Mystery. This book is a nice simple story about Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos and the origin of Krakoa, so if you want to know about that, that's interesting. But I would like to see more of these type things, maybe just like little one-shot stories, kind of filling in little gaps in the history of the Marvel Universe. Hopeless's script's awesome, Morissette's fans, and Rosenberg's artwork is awesome, fantastic stuff. It's actually a really fun one-shot. For $4.99, there's a lot of stuff out this week. You might want to pass this one up, but artistically, it's really strong. It's really fun, and it's just a nice little one-shot. I'd like to see some more of these kind of things. It seems like anthology books don't really work so well in today's current market, but maybe like a little one-shot here and there. Maybe that's something you can do. I don't know. It'd be cool to see that be like a series of one-shots, kind of like what they're kind of trying to do with What If, of course, and Web of Venom, right? That could be neat. Speaking of Venom, Venom First Host #3 is here because, of course, it's weekly. I'm loving this book. It's not the greatest, but it's so fun. It's a simple story. Venom, who was his first host? It's this Kree soldier, but is everything quite what it seems? I really like it. You get to deal a little bit with Eddie without the symbiote in this issue. You got some Skrull and Kree action going on, but you also got Mark Bagley and Ron Lim switching from page to page here, and normally when they switch artists like that, it kind of drives me insane. It provides a little bit of an inconsistency, but being an old school Venom fan, this reminds me of some old school Venom. They were the creators behind Lethal Protector, Ron Lim and Mark Bagley, so it really is fun. It's got a nice nostalgic feel to it. I really like this story. It's not as rich, it's not as deep as what Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman are doing on the main Venom title right now, but it's really, really fun, and Mike Costa continuing on with the threads that were left dangling from his Venom run before Donny Cates came on. Venom First Host, it's got my approval. It feels old school, silly, fun. Venom stuff. X-23 number 4 is here. I'm loving this book. I think it's great. First of all, Laura is a great character, but Mariko Tamaki is doing a great job crafting a really interesting story that harkens back to some characters created by Grant Morrison, the Stepford Cuckoos. I really think that's awesome. Brilliant artwork here from Cabal and Woodard. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Juan Cabal doing the line work and Nolan Woodard doing the amazing rich colors that just absolutely elevate the story into some of the most fantastical realms imaginable. It's a glorious book to look at. The artwork has very simple line work. It's got room to breathe and it's airy, but it really has a great composition to it and a really strong strength. And the script is really fun, easy to follow, a really intriguing story, and a great ending on this one. I'm loving what they're doing on X-23 right now. Old Man Logan number 47. We're nearing the end of this series and launching into Dead Man Logan, the 12-issue death of Old Man Logan. But Old Man Logan right now, what Ed Brisson's doing is he kind of just setting up the end of the series. So one of the things you got to do is kind of hit all the little Wolverine beats. Now he's hitting the Alpha Flight beat. This wraps up this Alpha Flight story. It's good. It's serviceable. The artwork is good and serviceable. Nothing really to write home to mom about. It's not going to change your life or nothing like that. But it does have a really nice setup at the end to let us know what's about to happen in the final arc of Old Man Logan by Ed Brisson. We already know if you've been paying attention to the solicitations, but it's going to be big, it's going to be fun, and I'm really loving what Brisson is doing with the character of Old Man Logan. Exiles number 8 is here, another one of those books that's got that really thin paper quality. And at first I was like, well, Exiles, it kind of makes sense. As much as I love this book, I think Saladin Ahmed's been doing an amazing job on this title. Cosmic, crazy, multiversal Marvel type stuff. I love jazz like that, right? So I'm loving this book, but it doesn't really seem to be the strongest seller right now, so I was kind of expecting it maybe to eventually get canceled, eventually to be winding down. So I figured when I saw the paper stock change that it made sense, but then I saw it on Amazing Spider-Man. It seems like it's going to be line wide, guys, so pay attention to that. But I'm loving this book so much. I love these characters. If you're a fan of the Judd Winnick Exiles book, you're going to love this one. References a lot of stuff from there. If you're not a fan, it catches you up on everything. Really intriguing characters. I love that cartoon version of Wolverine. Valkyrie's great. Blink herself is amazing. Nocturne's in here. Iron Lad, some really interesting stuff. If you like cosmic, fun, time-traveling, Kang, Watcher-oriented type Marvel stuff like that, read Exiles. It's pretty good. I really like it. I really like it. The dialogue's very solid. Darth Vader. Star Wars Darth Vader. Another one with that crappy paper in it, man. I don't really want to be too negative on it, but I just really don't like it. I really was worried when I heard about the paper switch on both Marvel and DC, but DC is really something I'm loving and enjoying, and it's even got me kind of nostalgic about it, but this one just, it doesn't feel good. Anyway, Charles Soule's been doing a great job on Darth Vader. This is no exception. Some really badass scenes in here. Really, really fun. Highlight how awesome that character is and how also he's a very tragic character as well. Full of mystery, but it's really just, he's just this, he's just a hurt dude, right? And well, that's what the story's been doing. Really fun stuff. Let's move over to DC Comics. Superman number 3 is out this week from Brian Michael Bendis. This is his best, most action-packed issue of Superman yet. Seriously. Ivan Reis's artwork is a little bit rushed in here. You can tell it suffers just a slight bit, but not too much. It's still awesome. It's still great, really fun stuff. Big, giant splash pages that really have maximum effect to it. Jack Sewer makes an appearance in this issue. Very, very fun. Basically, the planet has just all of a sudden appeared in the Phantom Zone. The reason why is explained in here. The characterization of Superman is spot on. Not as much Superman in here as in previous issues, but when he's there, it makes sense. It works right. Some scenes in here that really just were great. And there's one scene in here involving Adam Strange that was my laugh out loud moment at a comic book this week. I seriously laughed out loud for 10 seconds. It was so funny. I really enjoyed it. Loving the artwork, loving the story. I think Bendis is doing a great job. Ivan Reis is doing a great job. I'm loving Superman right now. Oh, and Sinclair. It's Sinclair, right? Sinclair's colors, fantastic. And even though it's got this lesser quality of paper than we're typically used to in comic books nowadays, the colors shine through. It's thick, it's meaty, it's sturdy. I'm loving it. Supergirl number 22. Let's talk about this. Mark Andreyko, Kevin Maguire. If you're a fan of Kevin Maguire's artwork, you're going to like it here. It's really cool. I like the character Supergirl. They haven't really quite explained the new costume, nor have we really quite seen it fully appear yet, but it does appear a little bit in here. But this new direction of Supergirl, Mark Andreyko, of course, is homies with Brian Michael Bendis. Supergirl is now out in space trying to figure out what exactly Rogal Zar did to destroy Krypton. He's claiming that he destroyed Krypton, right? That's what's going on in Superman. So Supergirl, who's the more proactive, more quickly prone to violence and anger of the Kryptonian cousins between Superman and, of course, herself. She's definitely going to be out there. She's with Krypto. She's out in space. She's trying to solve this mystery. It's really fun. It's kind of neat. It's a nice little supplemental material to the Superman books, so it really kind of, especially at the end of this, seems like you're going to get a little bit of the mystery revealed in here, and it's going to be reflecting in future issues of Superman, and I guarantee you that eventually one day we're going to be getting a crossover. So if you're liking what Bendis is doing on on Superman, you might want to check out what Andreyko and Maguire are doing over on Supergirl. Detective Comics 988 is here. Brian Hill is no longer on the book, but he's got Batman and the Outsiders that will be coming soon. So we got James Robinson in on a story right now, kind of just paving the way for Peter Tomasi. We're waiting on him. We know where he's coming in. He's taking us to Detective Comics 1000 and beyond. But until then, James Robinson's going to come on and remind us that this book is called Detective Comics and give us a really nice detective story. And this is a good first chapter of a detective story. James Robinson has done great work on Batman already before. He did a great book in the 1 year later from Infinite Crisis era called Face the Face, which was a great Two-Face story. I have a nagging suspicion that this is going to wind up being a Two-Face story because Robinson just loves Two-Face. But I really like the story. I really like the artwork. It's solid. I know it's kind of just a fill-in story, but I think it's going to be a fill-in story with some meat, with some really neat richness and texture to the artwork, and I think it's really worth our time. We know Peter Tomasi's coming in, but Brian Hill, that was just a fill-in story and a setup story for Outsiders, but it was really, really fun, and Robinson's story is no exception like that as well. Catwoman number 3 is here, and this is the first time I've read Catwoman for more than 3 issues. I mean, for 3 issues, and enjoyed it all 3 issues. This book was, well, not the first time. I'm sorry. Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker's Catwoman with Darren Cook, and then Cam Stewart. Yeah, never mind. I take that back. But this book by Joelle Jones is absolutely amazing. It's astounding. It's great. I really like it. I think she's doing a great job. Doing a great job with the character, especially post the wedding fiasco over at the Batman comic books. But Joelle Jones is joined by Fernando Blanco, doing a few pages of the artwork, but it makes sense in the story, the way that it's structured and framed, and it's really worked great. I love Laura Allred's colors. They are so great. The line work by Jones is so solid. Her scripting is amazing. Her pacing, of course, is brilliant. She's a comic book artist. She knows how to do that. But her script and the way that the dialogue is placed and everything, the narration, there's a whole bit in here by another artist. It's all exposition about who the villain is, but it flows so well. It's so good. This is seriously one of DC's best comics. It's Catwoman. That's insane. Joelle Jones, Laura Allred, and rest, you guys are doing the most amazing job. Seriously. Flash, number 54. Flash has been gripping with the Strength Force. That's why he looks all crazy, super buff right here, like Bane, like he's on Venom or something. Flash has always had crazy things happen to him, big heads and stuff like that, big fat flashes, all that kind of jazz, right? So this is a fun kind of throwback to that, but it's also interesting because Joshua Williamson has been doing a really good job on Flash ever since Rebirth started. He's been the sole writer on Flash. Is really taken some of the themes and ideas from Scott Snyder's Justice League run and kind of running with them just a little bit, no pun intended. The Strength Force, the Sage Force, the Still Force. So right now we're focusing on the Strength Force. Some really great developments with the Trickster in this issue. Really fun. Christian Doucet's artwork, fantastic. Really like it. Ultra detailed. His artwork's getting better and better and better each issue of the Flash that he does. Fantastic stuff. I'm loving it so much, and I'm really pumped because of what happens at the end of this issue, at what's to come and what's going to be going on with the Sage Force. Hawkman number 4 is here, and believe it or not, this book's really good. Wasn't expecting much out of this book originally. Thought maybe Brian Hitch had stretched himself too thin, and definitely thought that Robert Venditti didn't do the greatest job when he did runs on Flash and New 52, and then with, of course, Green Lantern. Just wasn't digging it that much, right? I'm loving what's going on with Hawkman right now. Hawkman has so many different versions of this character that exist in comic book history. They even, in the back of all the DC comic books, they got this thing for DC Nation back there where they kind of go over each and every one of them. And Venditti's trying to take them all and make them make sense. And other writers have done this before, like Jeff Johns, who did a fantastic job on his JSA run back in the day and his own Hawkman run. But this one has been really, really fun, action-packed, really interesting, and really, really cool. And it would never be, it doesn't shy away from the space Thanagar type stuff. It doesn't just brush it off. It really embraces it and embraces all the crazy history of Hawkman, and I'm enjoying this book so much. So much right now. Really, really am. Suicide Squad number 46. Don't typically read this title, but I'm reading it because of the Sync Atlantis story, and it was an alright issue. Kind of moved us a little bit forward so I can read the next issue of Aquaman that ends this whole thing. We know Kelly Sue DeConnick's coming on to Aquaman right now. Aquaman's been an alright book. He's one of my favorite characters, but the book itself has just been kind of whatever. But this was actually a pretty decent issue of Suicide Squad. It's got some It's got some kind of cringy moments, but overall, I do like the artwork. I think the artwork's pretty solid, highly detailed. The script is decent. The artwork, of course, is done by Jose Luis. Fantastic stuff. Williams and Abnett on the writing. Story's all right. It's interesting. King Shark stuff is cool, but I really like the artwork, and it's kind of a nice little setup. Michael Cray, number 11, the penultimate issue of Brian Hill's series set in the world of Warren Ellis's Wildstorm. You really learn a lot about what's going on with Michael Cray in this issue. You learn a lot about Diana Prince in this universe, and there's some interesting little things that develop in here. Overall, I think Brian Hill's been doing a great job with Michael Cray. The art's been pretty decent. Not my favorite art out there, but I do like the story. I like the script. I like the exploration of the character. It is straight up action movie. And that's what it is. It gets a little deep, but it doesn't, my one problem with this book is when you think it's about to get really deep, it kind of pulls itself back just a little bit. But I think they were like 12 issues. We can only get just so deep because we only have so many pages, so much time. Other than that, it's a well-paced action story with some really intriguing sci-fi elements. That's what Michael Cray's been. House of Whispers number 1 is here, continuing the Sandman universe relaunch. This was one of the stories that was set up in Sandman universe that was the least intriguing to me, and I actually didn't really like this issue. I found it very confusing. It was really hard for me to get into it. I think some people that are super hardcore into some Sandman stuff might like it, but overall it just didn't really do much for me. The characters were intriguing enough, but it just was hard to follow. The artwork was decent. The coloring is good. The dialogue was good. It was just a difficult story for me to follow. I feel like the structure and the narrative just didn't quite work for me on that one. Warren Ellis got a new book out this week, Cemetery Beach. It almost was the pick of the week. This is a really fun Warren Ellis first issue. You know what it is, a really neat, simple-like concept with some really awesome action sequences. That's no exception here in Cemetery Beach. This is Jason Howard on the artwork. Warren Ellis and Jason Howard do Trees together. They're taking a break in that story right now, and this one just kind of came up. And the basic idea of the story is that there's a colony out there on some forbidden planet somewhere, and the secret agent from Earth goes up there, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and he gets captured, and he has to escape, and all this kind of jazz, right? So the first half is kind of a bunch of exposition, but it's tied in, and Warren Ellis does it in such a fun way. It's a really fun scene, and you can't even really, I mean, you can tell that you're just getting a bunch of exposition, but it's still a very fun scene. You get wrapped up into it, and when the action starts, it doesn't stop until the end of the book. When you hit the last page, you're going to be really intrigued and be like, that was a really fun comic book. At least that's what I thought. Nobody writes action like Warren Ellis in comic books today, and hasn't for like the last 20 years. That's my opinion. I'm sticking by it. Cemetery Beach, really cool, simple concept, but really fun, high energy action. 1975, number 1, a new book from Joe Casey with artwork by Ian Makiwan and Brad Simpson on the coloring, Sonia Harris doing the design, Russ Wooten on the letters. I really like this book. I thought the design, the composition, the pacing, the flow of the story, the coloring, the dialogue, the characters, everything about this book is really cool. It kind of takes place in 1975. It's got a little bit of a supernatural vibe to it, but it's basically about a cab driver, and it seems like she's got this like mystical tire iron, and she's just a typical cab driver, but she has to come across like ninjas and demons and stuff like that. But it was really fun, had a nice flow to it. Joe Casey was one of my favorite writers back in the early 2000s. He has some really solid work at Marvel in the late 90s, early 2000s. A little bit lately, he's just been kind of meandering a little bit on the outskirts of the industry, but this book could definitely kind of bring him back into the forefront. Really great characterizations, really great pacing. The artwork by, is it Macewan or Makiwan? I'm saying that all kinds of wrong, but especially enhanced by the coloring. Fantastic stuff, really fun. That's one of your sleeper hits of the week right there. Farmhand number 3 from Rob Guillory, who we know from Chew, which I've never read Chew, but especially after reading issue 3 of this and knowing that 3 issues in, I am so sold on this book. I'm definitely going to be checking out his work with John Layman over on Chew very soon. Farmhand is really fun. A simple concept that's just bonkers fun. This dude learned how to grow organs as if on a farm. So he has a literal organ farm. Get it? Really fun stuff. Some interesting new ideas and new takes on the story kind of happen here. 3 issues in, this book has been zany. It's been wild. It's been fun. It's been unpredictable, but it's also been rooted and grounded with some great characterizations revolving around some family drama and feelings about stuff like that. Loving this book. Loving the characters. Loving the outlandish concepts. Farmhand is so fun. New World number 3 is here. This is one of the most fun comic books Alesh Kott has ever written. And Kott does some really great work, and I highly respect him. Zero's an amazing piece of work. Material's pretty decent. Generation Gone was my favorite comic book of last year. Days of Hate's kind of dour, but it's really good. Anyway, he does great work, but this is seriously one of the most fun comic books he's ever done, but it also has a nice serious core to it that's really fun. Really interesting concepts and explorations that are done thematically in this issue. High energy action, by the way. Tradd Moore, I think, adds a lot to the fun element in this book. Really cool stuff. I'm liking it. It's basically like Romeo and Juliet in some kind of crazy post-Civil War America, post-Civil War II America, something like that. Really fun stuff. Really interesting. If you're fans of most dystopian type sci-fi things with a lot of action in it, I think you're going to really like this. New World is really fun. Oblivion Song number 7 is here. This starts off the first issue. This starts off the second arc. That's right, of Robert Kirkman's Oblivion Song, and I'm loving it. I think this is great. This really has a lot of exposition, really fills you in on a lot of the background of the story, and it does it exceedingly well. I think this is some of Kirkman's best work. I know we're only 7 issues in, but I'm loving this book so much more than I do other things that he has written. Lorenzo Del Felici, however you say his name. Artwork fantastic, love it, really cool, interesting, stylistic, it's got its own approach to it. But the story right here, this is an exposition issue, but it's done really well. Sometimes I just feel like Kirkman's nothing but talking heads, and I get that that's kind of a joke that everybody kind of throws around. But Oblivion Song is filled with interesting ideas, innovative ideas, something different, something new, and it just is executed just perfectly. I think so. Crowded number 2 is here. I was really blown away with Crowded number 1. Crowded number 2 is pretty decent. Kind of keeps that high energy pace going, that flow's going in there. It took me a second to kind of remember and fill in all the gaps in my memory from the first issue. We read a lot of comics here, but Christopher Sabella and Rose Stein are doing a great job on this with Ted Brand on the inking. Triona Farrell's colors are amazing. I really do like the coloring. I like the artwork. I like the energy behind it. Love the dialogue. It's very snappy. One of the best works from Sabella that I have read lately. So I think it's really cool. I think it's worth your time. It's interesting. It's a world where we're so app-driven crazy right now that someone can actually crowdfund an assassination. And it's just really fun. So she therefore gets an app to get a bodyguard protector, and so now her bodyguard is protecting her from all these people, and there's all kinds of craziness, like who put out the hit on her, and why did so many people crowdfund it? She's just a normal person. Interesting stuff. I think Crowd is pretty neat. Wasted Space number 5. It's the end of the first story arc of Wasted Space, and it was a great finale. I loved it so much. I am so glad we got 15 more issues of the series. It's been one of my favorite comic books of 2018. I guarantee you it's going to be in my top 10 list at the end of this year. This book has been amazing. Michael Morrissey is the writer, Hayden Sherman is the penciler and the illustrator, and Jason Wordie does the coloring and the lettering. Let's just go ahead and mention Jim Campbell there, because everybody involved in this book does such an amazing job. Vault Comics has just been pumping out the most consistently imaginative and elegant and just exceptional stories out there on the market right now. Wasted Space is right now at the top of the game over at Vault. This book is so much fun. It's like Blade Runner meets Preacher. It's got a snarky F-you attitude to it. It's a little bit of fear and loathing in Las Vegas to it, but it's also about like heroism and saving the world and not being fooled by just what people tell you and how to question reality. Wasted Space is a book that will teach you how not to waste space. It's brilliant. I love it so much. It was a great, satisfying end of the first arc that really set up a lot to come, and I could not be more pleased. From Boom Comics, we got a new one called Low Road West. This book was really good. Wasn't expecting much from it, but this book was absolutely fantastic. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the writer. Flaviano is the illustrator, Miguel Mierto is the coloring, and Jim Campbell, who is from Wasted Space, is the letterer. This book was really cool. It's basically this dystopian world where like there's crazy battles going on America's East Coast. The desert in the West is all abandoned. There's these kids, and they're orphaned, and they're being driven across this desert in a bus, and the bus driver just gets up and leaves and abandons these children to just survive on their own in this kind of landscape. And it was really, really fun. I really like the artwork. I really like the characterizations. It's got some really interesting supernatural type elements to it as well. Really intriguing. Another sleeper hit of the week. Low Road West. Really worth your time this week. Another one from Boom Studios. In fact, Boombox. Welcome to Wonderland. This was the first one I read, and I was very surprised by this. I really, really did enjoy it. It's created and written by Jackie Ball and illustrated by Maddie Gonzalez with colors by Namali Abiratney. I said that all kinds of wrong. Really like this book. It's a really fun book done in the style of Boombox, where they do these like all ages stories that are like super inclusive and just really cool, neat ideas. The basic idea about this is, what if you go to Disney World or Disneyland so much that you just become completely jaded with it? And then what if you found a magical door that led you to the real Disney World? And Disney World was not just props and sets and people in costumes, but it was real. That's kind of what this book is about. It was really, really fun, neat little characters, great dialogue, a very charming story. I really, really liked it. Definitely worth your time checking out if you like stuff like that. Archie, 1941, a new one from Mark Waid and Brian Augustin, but I want to point out Peter Krause's artwork. Did a fantastic job. We already know that Mark Waid kind of redid Archie recently, kind of took it from the silly, Archie that we know and love from our childhood, but it made it a little bit more grown up, a little bit more real, a little bit more dramatic. And this is the same take, but put into 1941. So basically, Archie is in the midst of, is just graduated high school. He doesn't know what to do, and it looks like America's about to join World War II. So it's kind of neat placing Archie in that historical context and kind of doing a more grounded, down-to-earth kind of story with that. I did enjoy this. I like the nice little alternate takes on Archie stories and things like that. So Archie 1941 is pretty good. From Aftershock Comics, Hot Lunch Special number 2. I was blown away by issue number 1. I loved issue number 2. Issue number 1 was a nice introduction. Big boom, boom, boom. Number 2 slows it down a little bit. Gets you into not just the minds of these characters that were introduced in issue 1, but the souls of these characters, because there's a grieving process going on after what happened at the end of the first issue. But this is fun. Average small-time business owners, mafia wrapped up in it. So it's basically a crime fiction story by Elliot Rahal. Doing an amazing job writing this one. I've loved his work over at Cult Classic, Return to Whisper at Vault Comics. Jorge Fjornez, who did one of my favorite comic books last year with Magnus. Love his artwork. His artwork is great. Great line work, great coloring, great composition. Everything about this is great. It's really cool. If you like things like The Sopranos, if you like the more blue-collar aspect to crime fiction, definitely recommend Hot Lunch Special. Volition number 2 is here from Aftershock Comics by Ryan Parrott, who's writing Go-Go Power Rangers. Omar Francia doing the artwork. The artwork's pretty decent. It gets a little stiff at times, kind of a little hard to follow with some of the coloring. Gets a little unclear. I had that problem with issue number 1, but when I read issue number 2, I just got pulled out of the story. It just didn't really do much for me. It didn't pull me in. I thought issue 1 was a neat little take on this whole AI robots, like what will happen in the future if we have a whole class of artificial intelligence and robots. I thought it was a neat little take on that. What happens after the robots get their rights? What happens years later? But this issue just didn't really do much for me. Didn't really grab me in. Didn't really fill me in that much. I just kind of felt a little lost, even though I was kind of impressed with issue number 1. Nancy Drew number 4 is here. I'm loving what Kelly Thompson and Jen St. Ong are doing on this title. Amazing stuff. I've never been a Nancy Drew fan, but I am a Thompson fan. I love the artwork as well. This book is really, really fun. I love their work when they work together over at Jim and the Holograms. Kelly Thompson's got a great knack at taking some of these characters, some of these properties that are a little cheesy maybe from back in the 80s or before, and kind of putting them now into the modern 2018 and making them current, making them feel relevant and hip and fresh again. She does it with Nancy Drew. Really fun, intriguing mystery, more of a Detective Comics than Detective Comics usually is. But Nancy Drew's a nice little detective story. I think even if you weren't a fan of Nancy Drew, like me, you'll appreciate this book. Fantastic stuff. And look at that cover. Beautiful colors there, actually. From Alternative Press, we have Exilium number 1. I've been really looking forward to this one because I think Alterna does some pretty decent work. They do this newsprint type stuff, so their comic books stay super, super cheap. This is only $1.50 for issue number 1, but I found this very confusing, hard to get into. I was excited to see some new sci-fi come in from a different company, from a different voice, maybe a more unique voice. A smaller press type thing, but ultimately I just found this kind of boring and not really worth my time. But one alternative book, comics book I really do like is The 12. Number 4 is here. Patrick Trahey has been doing an amazing job on this book. I love the coloring. I love the simple line work. This is a big what happened in the past exposition type issues. So a lot of comic books this week, and it seems like a third of them are exposition issues, but at least the ones I read did it pretty well. So right now, this is one of my favorite books from Alterna Comics. The 12, really fun, and I think Trahey has a future in this industry, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do next. And there's still one more issue in that series to come. So that's what I read this week, and that's what I thought about it. So let me know what you read and what you think about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Please do check us out at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, guys. So share. Tell everybody to subscribe, because at 3,000 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway. We're going to give something away. And I'm doing a special live stream to answer your questions. And once again, we're talking about live streams. Sunday night, 7 o'clock. We're going to be doing a live stream. The Cowboys game is going to be going on, so I may be distracted by that at times. But we are going to be doing the live stream. Let's hang out and watch the Cowboys game together, right? Talk about comics and pop culture. Anyway, thank you guys so much for rocking with us, and keep on reading.